Good morning. I'm Acting Inspector Jeff Glinski of the Calgary Police Service Technical Investigations Section. And this morning we are joined by several of our community partners, including the Better Business Bureau, the Real Estate Council of Alberta, the Alberta Securities Commission, and the Calgary Public Library, as we launch the 18th Annual National Fraud Prevention Month campaign. Each year, CPS and several other community groups and law enforcement agencies work together to help educate businesses, consumers and citizens about common types of frauds and scams. Our collective goal is to help people recognize, report, and ultimately stop fraud. Since 2015, CPS calls for service relating to fraud have doubled. However, despite this increase, it is important to know that frauds are vastly underreported. Throughout the month, there will be weekly themes focusing on different kinds of scams and frauds, including information about how and where to report fraudulent activity. This week's themes highlights cryptocurrency scams. Anecdotally speaking, we have seen demands made by fraudsters for payment in cryptocurrency grow because it provides the fraudster anonymity. Generally, scams are designed to fish for personal and financial information using clever and sophisticated techniques. These scams can occur through email, fraudulent websites, text messages, or other online platforms, as well as through physical theft of mail or other personal items stolen during break-and-enter offenses. As always, we encourage anyone who has experienced financial loss or has had their personal information compromised to come forward and report the incident. Depending on the nature of the fraud, citizens can report to their local police, financial institutions, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, and various other agencies. The Calgary Police Service would like to thank all of our Fraud Prevention Month partners across the province and country for their continuous work in fighting fraud. I will now invite Mary O'Sullivan-Anderson from the Better Business Bureau to share a few words.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mary O'Sullivan-Anderson, President and CEO of Better Business Bureau, serving Southern Alberta and East Kootenay. It's a pleasure to be here this morning with Acting Inspector Jeff Glinski of the CPS Economic Crimes Unit, Charles Stevenson with the Real Estate Council of Alberta, Sarah Mueller, CEO of Calgary Public Library, and all of our valued partners during Fraud Prevention Month and throughout the year. Every year, BBB highlights March as Fraud Prevention Month. This year, our theme is Friends Don't Let Friends Get Scammed. Canadians are being scammed online through messaging, emails, and websites, but these scams also occur by telephone, via the mail, and in person. This makes it more important than ever for friends, family members, and colleagues to get the facts on fraud prevention and share this knowledge to further protect everyone in your network. To this end, in conjunction with our partners and notably the Calgary Public Library, we will be offering a series of webinars throughout March on fraud prevention and scam prevention. These are listed online at calgarylibrary.ca. Also next Monday on March the 7th, BBB will be releasing the BBB Scam Tracker Canadian Risk Index Report, available at bbb.org/risk report. In this report, the most prevalent scams of 2021 will be revealed. The BBB Scam Tracker report is a valuable tool because it surveys thousands of consumers and data from the Scam Tracker, an online scam tracking tool, to employ a three-dimensional approach to measure scam risk. This is based on three factors: exposure, looking at volume of reports as a percentage, susceptibility, percentage of those exposed who lost money, and monetary loss, looking at the median dollar amount of losses reported. Scammers are opportunists. To avoid scams, be skeptical, learn more about scams, ask questions, and rely on trusted sources of information. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Again, I'd like to thank all the media present today for attending this press conference, the Calgary Police Service for all the work that they do in stopping and preventing scams and fraud happening in our community, and to all of our partners for Fraud Prevention Month. By sharing information to be more informed about scams, you are all helping to protect the community, and most importantly, the vulnerable citizens from these reprehensible and illegal scams. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I will now call upon Charles with Real Estate Council of Alberta to share some opening remarks.
Well, thank you so much. My name is Charles Stevenson, and I'm the registrar here at the Real Estate Council of Alberta. We're really pleased to be part of this group of partners and friends, as we believe that fraud awareness is probably the single most important thing that we do. In other words, we believe that aware consumers are protected consumers. Buying or selling a property is one of the most important decisions and financial decisions a consumer is going to make. Whether they're buying or selling property, whether they're applying for a mortgage, whether they're managing that property thereafter, they are susceptible to fraudsters. The Real Estate Council of Alberta, or RECA as we're often referred to, we're the independent governing authority that sets, regulates, and enforces in standards for for real estate practitioners, for mortgage brokers, for property managers, and for condominium managers in Alberta. Licensed professionals have to meet certain criteria and RECA's standards to enter the industry. A large part of our mission is to protect consumers against fraud as it relates to the real estate industry by ensuring the professionals they work with are licensed. Every year in March, RECA participates in this National Fraud Prevention Month campaign. FPM is an annual campaign that seeks to help Canadians recognize, reject, and report fraud. This year, throughout the month of March, RECA will be using our social networks to alert the public to common types of fraud we are seeing in the real estate industry. Specifically, we will be identifying how fraudsters often lure their victims through mass marketing schemes online using social media and selling sites such as Kijiji to advertise false real estate scenarios that on the surface sound very attractive but turn out to be conduits for fraudsters to attract victims so they may steal their property, their money, or their identity. For example, a recent fraud scheme we've encountered is one in which seller financing is advertised online by an unlicensed real estate associate, whereby buyers believe they are entering into a rent-to-own scenario only to find out months after payments they have no interest in the property whatsoever. If something sounds too good to be true, and ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a common theme across, I believe, all of our partners here. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is. Throughout Fraud Prevention Month, RECA intends to help consumers learn to recognize red flags when buying or selling property and spread awareness that RECA is here as a resource for Alberta consumers should they have any questions in their real estate dealings. If consumers are unsure of any part of a real estate deal or come across marketing that doesn't seem legitimate, they're encouraged to reach out to us. Please visit reca.ca for fraud prevention and awareness resources for consumers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles. And now I'll call upon Sarah with the Calgary Public Library to talk a little bit about some of the ways that we're working with the library to offer some webinars throughout the month of March on various fraud and scam topics.
Thanks so much. Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Mueller, the CEO of Calgary Public Library, and I'm so pleased to be here on behalf of the library to welcome you to this virtual launch of Fraud Prevention Month, Frauds, Scams, and Shams. So the library is so pleased to partner with the Better Business Bureau, Calgary Police Service, and the Real Estate Council of Southern Alberta to help our community learn really how to best protect themselves from frauds, scams, and shams. The library is here to give everyone access to ideas, experiences, information, and insight. Libraries are community hubs where Calgarians come to learn and share. And so we have an excellent lineup of events for you this month, with other community partners I've mentioned to keep you safe and informed on some of the most common forms of fraud in our community. Join us on March 3rd as we walk through cryptocurrencies, the most frequent types of scams, and what you should consider before investing. On March 10th, you can hear directly from Calgary Police Service about identity fraud. Learn what to do when fraud happens to you, how and why you should report fraud, and fraud prevention techniques. The Better Business Bureau's Consumer Investigations Unit will share how to research a business, common red flags, and questions to ask before you sign a contract on March 24th. And finally, learn how fraudsters are using Kijiji, Facebook, and mobile chat apps to lure homeowners and renters into illegal transactions, and what to do if it happens. in partnership with the Real Estate Council of Alberta and Calgary Police Service, and that's on March 31st. So we're pleased to be hosting these programs with our Fraud Prevention Month partners and providing our community members with information from trusted sources. That's one of the things that the library does so well. As previously mentioned, you can register for these programs with your library card at calgarylibrary.ca. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today and see you at the library, both virtually and in person.
Thank you so much, Sarah. All right, we will now open up the floor for the Q&A portion. So if any member of the media has a question, please use the chat function to let me know that you do have a question, and I will call upon you to ask it. You can ask any of the partners here in attendance, including Alberta Securities Commission, as well as Bank of Canada, any fraud-related questions you may have. Does anybody have a question to start with? Stephanie Thomas, please state the organization that you're with and go ahead and ask your question.
CTV Calgary. I have a question for the Calgary Police Service regarding the increase in reported fraud since 2015. And also I'm seeing other reports from other organizations that say that the pandemic is playing a role. So I wanted to ask what is believed to be behind the increase in fraud scams that are being reported?
Well, definitely one issue with COVID has become is people are connecting remotely. And one of the fastest growing areas we've seen, it's not the most common reported, but a fastest growing genre has been the romance scam, where people are connecting online, people are afraid to meet in person. So there's a longer connection occurring online, and people, again, have their confidence gained. And that's when they become susceptible to falling for a scam. Again, identity theft is also a major continuous occurrence we're investigating of all kinds. Another reminder again to keep all your confidential banking and personal information to yourself unless it's an absolutely trusted source you're providing it to.
Thank you, Jeff. Is there any follow-up question that you may have for?
Yes, I do. I'm wondering about recourse then. So if someone finds themselves a victim of fraud, and let's use the example of a romance scam where perhaps they offered a sum of money and it was a gift, is there any, mechanism, I guess, through, charges or through the police and court system to actually hold people account? Or is there some difficulty or gaps when someone gifts, someone money, perhaps fraudulently? What follow-up can the law do to help victims in this way?
Well, again, if you're providing money under a false pretense or under a different umbrella of what this person is actually going to do with the money, that is definitely a reportable offense. Keep all, relatable information to this offense. Keep all the messages if you have them. Any banking information, keep that current and available to provide to officers and investigators. But definitely these are reportable offenses and they can be prosecuted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Inspector. Thank you, Stephanie. Does anybody else have a question? Rick from CBC, you have a question for all of the partners. Please go ahead and ask your question. Oh, I see it's directed at Real Estate Council of Alberta. Go ahead, Rick.
There we go. I hope you can hear me. Rick
Yes.
Donkers with CBC Radio. Charles, I'd like to get a little more detail, if I could, on this scam involving online sales attempts. Can you give us a little more detail on it?
Well, thanks for the question, Rick. The scam generally begins with sort of an environmental issue, and that is in this period of pandemic, people unfortunately have become disemployed. Perhaps they don't qualify for a mortgage. Perhaps it's a short-term situation, and they go looking online for various options to buy a home. And they may come across somebody who is saying, we have a rent-to-own situation, or we have a seller financing situation, and they reach out to the individual at the other end, trusting that they're a licensed real estate professional. They engage in a contract, albeit a straw contract. Ultimately, think that they've bought the home, move in, and pay rent for a number of months, only to find out that they were never given an interest in the property and own nothing. They've simply thrown their money away for a period of time. We like to say, Rick, that the best way to at least start the prevention process with that is visit our website and make sure that the people that you are dealing with are in fact licensed to trade in real estate or deal in mortgages or provide condominium management services.
You talked about debt consolidation deals as well. Are they typically targeting those who have a less than solid financial history?
So again, great thought. And our markets suffer peaks and valleys. Right now, we're in a peak, and yet there are some undercurrents because of the pandemic that sort of confuse things. And so, yes, this notion of consolidating debt is one aspect of mortgage fraud. Another one is people with really sterling credit will reach out and make application, provide their financial information, their identification to a quote mortgage broker, end quote. Ultimately, the mortgage broker says, "I'm sorry, but in this market you've been refused," and they take all of that information they've gathered up and use it inappropriately elsewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Does anybody else have a question for any of the partners? Okay, I have a question that was sent to me directly. We have someone wanting to know more about cryptocurrency scams. So perhaps Alberta Securities Commission, could you maybe do a quick run through of what constitutes as a cryptocurrency scam and how do people fall victim to that? Kind of what is the draw from the scammer to use that in a particular scam or fraud?
Thanks, Leah. Well, good morning, everyone. The Alberta Securities Commission is responsible for administering the security laws in Alberta. So our purview is tied to investments, and we do that to foster a fair and efficient capital market in Alberta and to protect investors. And so one of the things we've been seeing, we recently surveyed the public and found that 48% of Albertans feel like they've been approached with a fraudulent investment opportunity. And to your point, Leah, the Canadian Securities Administrators, as well as the North American Securities Administration Association, recently both stated that investments that are tied to cryptocurrencies or digital assets are the #1 threat to investors. And we're seeing the vector through which that is commonly happening is, as Inspector Galinsky mentioned, is through social media platforms. And one of the things we're committed to doing is, as all of our partners are committed here to doing, is to educate the public and make sure that we are increasing at ASC, the investment literacy of Albertans and empowering them to detect and see investment fraud before it happens to them. One of the ways that we are providing opportunities to increase that investment literacy is through our website, checkfirst.ca. There are a ton of resources on there to help Albertans understand what a cryptocurrency scam might be. And as Sarah mentioned, we do have presentations, over 30 this month, in fact, happening at the Calgary Public Library and other locations to help Albertans understand the specifics around cryptocurrencies. We're also going to release an information guide this month on crypto and some resources to help Albertans understand more about how these types of scams happen. But to get to the specifics of your question, Leah, often you will see an unsolicited crypto investment opportunity come to you through either in person or over the phone, or as I mentioned, through online means, social media. And in many cases, we are concerned about unregistered platforms. These are crypto asset platforms that offer, specifically those that hold the custody of the crypto asset on behalf of the investor, and also facilitate the trading of that crypto asset or security. And that's really the space that Alberta Securities Commission deals in. It's not everything related to crypto assets, but more specifically, those assets where the platform itself is holding the asset and facilitating the trade of that, then securities law may apply in those instances. And so not unlike other types of fraud, you will hear promises of very high returns. And what investors need to know is that crypto assets and cryptocurrencies in and of themselves are high risk just by their very nature. But when you couple that with crypto asset platforms that aren't registered, they don't offer the same protections that a registered and regulated crypto asset platform would do for consumers or for investors. You may see things like unusual forms of payment requested, like wire transfers from one platform to another, not knowing who you're dealing with. You may see a new coin come out. There's been lots of new coins and tokens come out. And if there's limited or confusing information on what the purpose of that coin is or who is backing that coin or invented that coin, that's another red flag as well. So one of the things that investors can always do related to crypto assets specifically is to check the registration of the crypto asset trading platform. And those are listed on our website at albertasecurities.com as well as checkfirst.ca. And we do offer some really good advice and guidance on crypto assets and crypto in general under the albertasecurities.com website and their innovation and finance tab. You can get more information on that there as well. Is there any follow-up to that?
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. I didn't receive a follow-up question. Did anybody else have any other questions about Alberta Securities Commission and other types of investment or cryptocurrency related fraud? No. Okay, I do have a couple more questions that were sent directly to myself. This one looks like it would be for Better Business Bureau. So one of the weekly themes is about business scams. So perhaps, Mary, could you maybe talk a little bit about what are some popular or commonplace business-related scams, and what are the red flags of those, and how and when should people be reporting such scams to Better Business Bureau?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Thanks for the question. Some of the top business-related scams that we might see are, again, because we're prime with a lot of individuals working remotely, they're taking advantage of emails to gain trust and really take over somebody else's identity. So whether that is emailing somebody saying, I'm out of the office, please send me this, it's taking advantage of just the environment that we're currently in right now, and building trust that way in order to find, ultimately victims and scams. Any follow-up to that, Leah?
Thank you. No follow-up.
Awesome.
One last question here. This one is pertaining to more about banking and perhaps maybe some loan scams. So our representative from Bank of Canada, would you be able to maybe shed some light on some trending scams that you're seeing on the financial side of things, maybe some red flags for people to look out for and to report?
Sure, thank you for that. I'm not really from the Bank of Canada perspective. We're the central bank, so I can't really speak to financial crimes per se. That would be more a financial institution or the Canadian Banking Association. They would be probably better able to answer that kind of question. So where I kind of fit into this is more, or where the Bank of Canada fits in is more on the currency side and the counterfeiting aspect of our currency. And so we have actually seen a bit of a downward trend through the pandemic. Because there've been lockdowns and curfews and what have you. But just as all of my partners have mentioned, that we speak about vigilance, and as we're opening, the economy starts to open up again, that people may be more using more cash, and so again that those opportunities, the criminals may find those opportunities again, and so always to have that vigilance. And to just keep, if you have any questions about our currency, because we have changed our currency, to go to our website and become familiar with the security features of banknotes, and to check your banknotes on a regular basis, whether you're on the consumer side or the retailer side.
Thank you. Can you maybe elaborate on what people should be looking for when they're checking their banknotes?
Sure. So first of all, I mean, bankofcanada.ca is a great place to look, but I'm just going to speak about our polymer money. So we have polymer, very different feel than what we had previously, which is paper. So the feel aspect is very important, but what you're also going to see on all of our banknotes, there's a transparent area, very clear area. Make sure that that is clear. That should not look like Scotch tape or that it's taped together. And there's holographic components inside that clear, transparent area. And it should be holographic on the front and on the back of the bill. So whether the bill is given to you from the front or the back, a retailer or consumer, you can check those features. Just make sure, just have a quick, the feel and then the quick tilt of the money and make sure that that looks like the real deal for you.
Thank you so much. I may have one final question here that was sent to me directly. Stand by. Okay, so we just have a comment here from Better Business Bureau that, of course, any of our partners are still available after the press conference today. Should media have any more industry-specific questions, in the release, there's a list of all of the participating provincial partners should other questions arise after the event this morning. Does anybody else have any other questions for our partners before we conclude? Going once, going twice. Okay, with that, we will wrap up our media launch for Fraud Prevention Month. Thank you everybody for joining us today. And if there's any other follow-up, just please reach out to the respective partners in the press release, and any CPS related calls, you can call the media line. Thank you.